Good evening, it's Friday night, just gone 7 o'clock, and as always, you're tuned to the Friday night football pitch with myself, Cameron McDonald, Dennis Newell, and we're also joined tonight for the second time this season by John O'Brien, Airdrie fan extraordinaire and contributor to previous radio stations and things like that. Talking tonight, I think biggest talking point of the week this week has obviously been events at Ibrox, changing manager. Barry Ferguson coming in. Obviously, I know Barry from his time at Clyde, or know of Barry from his time at Clyde. Manager who's failed last three positions he's had, so no doubt he'll be looking to do a good job replacing Philippe Clement at Ibrox. Also be looking probably down south, FA Cup this weekend. English Premier League already sewing up pretty much. So both big leagues in the UK are sewing up, English League and Scottish Premier League already sort of finalised, I think, pretty much. But we will start, I think, at Ibrox. As we say, Philippe Clement, time has struck me as a wee bit strange. Dennis, I don't know what your thoughts on it are.
Well,
first of all, good evening, John, as well.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Cammy. It's a never-ending saga, Ibrox. That's all I would say about this. The guy should have been out the door before he even get an extension to his contract, and that's where this is where part of the rot started. You have to go further back than that. You have to go back to the Ross Wilson days and managers that just weren't fit for the gig. Rangers is a massive club throughout the world, and I just don't understand. Well, this board of directors seem to be able to bring people in and think they're going to do a job. I mean, I just don't know where they get them, seriously. And when they start making appointments, you think it's only papering over the cracks. You know, you look at that Rangers setup, and the board of directors is like shuffling a pack of cards as well. They're all over the place. You look at Michael Beale. How in God's name did he ever get a manager's job? I mean, I actually thought he could do well in England, and Sunderland, after about 12, 13 games, punted him straight out the door. And then he ends up somewhere else. It's no good enough. Being able to talk a good game doesn't make you a good manager. And I think there's an element that he talks his way into things. And there's where the rot started. Who brought Ross Wilson in? God only knows. And I know Roscoe for his days back in Falkirk, when he chapped the door and asked if he could help out at Falkirk. And his tasks were driving John Hughes about. That's where it stemmed from. And then he had that nugget where he managed to go to Southampton and captured Van Dijk, and that made him no return valve. That was him. He was on his way, and he ended up at Ibrox. And when he got actually appointed for director of football to go and look at who would be brought in, I was amazed. I really was. Now, he's a nice guy, but I'll say it a few times tonight, there's no sentiment in football, and that should never have been an appointment that was going to bring talent to Ibrox. And it's proven, because they are suffering from the appointments that were made back then. And as much as Clement's away, we've said it week in and week out, and everybody else that talks about football is saying the same thing, that he wasn't fit for the job, right? And the big problem I had with him was, not that he's probably a nice guy and worked his socks off in the job. The point I have is that he thought the players that he brought in, and also the players that were already there, were good enough to go and compete in the Premier League and possibly beat Celtic on a regular basis. Never in a million years. And that's the problem I had with the guy. I know the stuff, obviously, delusional stuff he used to come out with after games and stuff. I've swept that under the carpet. It's the fact that he looks at players and he actually thinks they're good. And I'm thinking, no, they're no good. They're not good enough to play with Rangers. And he's bought some of them in there. And if the club thinks that he's worth giving an extension to the contract on the back of what he brought in, they're needing to go down the road with him, because it'll just follow the same road, because they don't know what talent is. So he's gone. We could milk it all night and start to talk about where the pitfalls were. The problem, and I look at it because they're still there, is the board of directors. They're incompetent. Fully, and they're accountable. And there's people out there that are busting a gut to pay for season tickets and get to games week in and week out. And these guys are not capable are producing what they require, and that's a team on the park that is fit for purpose. Barry Ferguson's come in, and I look at that appointment as well. Without saying Barry Ferguson won't do the gig, I don't think it's a hard gig to end up second in the Premier League in Scotland at this moment in time. It's not hard, right? And the money they've spent in the players got there, they should be able to bring anybody more or less in. Now, I'm not saying Barry Ferguson is not good as a manager, but his credentials don't actually stack up when you see where he was and how he has come out of the game because of failing to a degree. And that's at the lower levels. So how can you pitch him right into a Premier League club with a Europa League coming up and expect him to be getting the best out of these guys that have not gave it to another manager who you would imagine are going to work for him because bulk of them he brought in. So the team round about him, questionable as well. Now, I'll give him his due. And this is where I say sentiment again. He went back to Ibrox. He was doing his ambassador. And he's always, as a childhood dream after he finished playing, wanted to manage Rangers. He's now got his chance. And I'm delighted for him. But there's no sentiment in football. And that's where I think the directors, short term, he might do the gig, but he won't have what it takes with him and the rest of the squad to leapfrog the big thing, Celtic. And that's what the problem is. Now, I'm not going to rant too long about this, although I've done it already. The thing about the game during the week was he identified the young centre-half was having a nightmare. Now, he already played in the game on the Saturday, or that you beat against St Mirren. So you look at it and you say to yourself, how did he get a start again? I would have changed him right away. Barry Ferguson gave him 30 minutes. And for me, it was 30 minutes too long. If Kilmarnock had anything about them, they would have had that game sewn up in the first half because they missed good chances. But that young boy that played at centre-half, that'll not do him any good. He got hauled off after 30 minutes, and it changed the game. And it changed the game to the point that Rangers did look an awful lot better. But Kilmarnock looked an awful lot worse when they went two up. It was as if the game was done for them. Dessers seems to get out of jail week in and week out. Took his goals well, but after 30 minutes, Dessers missed two good chances. He doesn't get taken off. Young boy has a bit of a bomb scare when he's defending. He gets taken off. So how is it that Dessers escapes the noose when the young boy in defence gets away with it? Dessers comes off the park at the end of it, all smiling, man of the match. He scored 2 goals. But it should have been 2 each before half-time, not 2-0. And that's how I see the game. I don't see it as the fact that Dessers is playing, and I've said this before on here, I keep looking at the negative parts of how teams play, because if you don't look at the negative parts of your team, you will continue to go down the toilet. And this is what Dessers are doing. They have to score 4 goals on the back of the other team collapsing. And he gets X amount of chances, which is frightening. But it will continue because he'll not be ejected out of there because he's got a big price tag on him. So where Rangers will go with Barry Ferguson, I think they'll end up doing really well. But it'll not be enough in relation to catching Celtic. They'll not beat Celtic in the next 2 games, almost certainly that. And if he loses the plot, he might not see the end of the season, and that's my worry.
Yeah, John, good evening to you.
Good evening.
You have been listening to the Friday. You have been listening to the Friday Night Football Pitch. We'll be back next week. No, sorry, Dennis.
It was 8 minutes, Cammy. I did have a look.
Right.
Right, John. The one thing about Rangers changing managers was the timing for me. You know, to me, it seemed a strange. I know they obviously lost a bad game last week, a bad result, a bad performance against St Mirren. The midweek performance against Hearts, although they won the game at Tynecastle, was dreadful, and obviously with the Queen's Park game before that. But the timing of Clement leaving struck me as strange because Rangers have a massive European game coming up. And I don't think they're going to lose second spot, irrespective of who's in charge, whether it's Barry Ferguson, Philip Clement, Dennis Newell. whoever. So I don't know about you, John, but the timing struck me as a strange time to get rid of a manager.
Absolutely. I have to agree. The thing is, it's a bit of an enigma, that I'm going to sneeze actually. A bit of an enigma that the manager should be so successful in Europe but fail in Scottish football, which is quoted as being some of the worst. To my mind, I'm old enough to remember many great. John Gregg was he wasn't a great manager. Willie Miller was a great player, wasn't a great manager. Barry Ferguson, a great player. You don't become great managers. Because my team's always in the lower league, etc. I have an email which came to me when I asked the question of one of the clubs that he did manage, Barry Ferguson. I was told by this person who is virtually the heart and soul of the club that he managed, that he had set them back 20 years when he was manager there at that club. I'll leave you to guess which one that was, but
There was only a choice of three.
Well, it was a very successful. They were they buzz a lot, shall we say?
Can't be Kelly.
It's not be Alloa. If they buzzed a lot, it's not be Alloa.
They were so delighted to, and they're still recovering at the moment. I don't know. To me, it's a commercial thing. They've brought in all these players, all these guys who, which won't have gone unnoticed by the fans of the other teams. They are all guys who were involved in the EBT scandal, whatever it was, and they're all together. But it's a commercial thing for Rangers to, as I heard on the radio previously, you're going to get a lot of demands now. And he's there to virtually get a few results against Scottish teams. But I can't honestly see him as a future manager. He did one of the attitudes that people disliked about him when he was a manager at Alloa was the fact that he didn't treat players right. Now, that young boy you've just talked about there was virtually hanging his hand out to be shaking hands with the manager and was ignored. Now, that was wrong. That was wrong.
John, that was absolutely shocking. That was embarrassing, and that showed you the lack of professionalism of the manager when the player had to go towards him. Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Very, very much. I think that you're right. It'll be interesting to see what happens now, because Fenerbahce are a very, very good team with a very, very good manager who himself is, courting controversy at the moment. But I would have said Clement has had some outstanding results with the Rangers in Europe. But then you look at the previous manager who took them to a European final and he got the sack. So, yes, you say about the problem just now, I think, and it rules the roost, sadly, with the top two teams in Scotland, is that fan media has now such a major influence in what happens next. There is so much literature, so many sites, so many podcasts, and it's fighting up. Fans don't need to protest and boo at full time, etc., because it's done in another way.
Unless you're at Motherwell.
This is how it's done nowadays, and sometimes the tail wags the dog, and on you go. So, as far as the difficulty you will have in that regard, while you lay open, there's a guy who I can't remember the previous chairman of Rangers who left with ill health, having just given them £10 million or something like that. You know what I mean? I just think to myself, gee whiz, you cannot follow the pathway that Rangers were always going to have a difficult season because of the structure that happened at the start. They weren't playing their games at home. They weren't playing their European games at home. So they were losing money. So you're right. It needs a root and branch look at who you're saying there. What happened? Who organised that? There's a guy away over in Saudi, and I don't even know he was the CEO or whatever. I just think there's so many people who look in the fan media. You asked about what's his name? Everybody used to say that Steven Gerrard wasn't a great manager. It was down to the guy who made him great, which was the guy who became the Rangers manager. Because fan media punted this myth that Steven Gerrard, he's made him great. He's made him great because he was great when he was at Liverpool and he was this under manager, that Liverpool youth team, etc. And he took them far, etc. And that's the problem. Sometimes it's just an issue. I think that they will get a run of results tomorrow. You could be under pressure tomorrow because Motherwell's had a good result, and the German has got them playing different, and they're getting some of the players back. Or they could win 7-0 because everyone's happy again. But it'll be interesting to see. Barry Ferguson was mooted for the job at Airdrie, and I didn't want him. As a lifelong Airdrie fan, I did not want him. No. I respect everything that he's done, but two players in there that should be remembered, who the tartan arm, to do that, to show the lack of class when they did that on television to the fans, with the Victory V sign and whatever it was. And two of them are now the coaches. Al McGregor doesn't have a coaching badge, does he?
I don't think so. I'm not very sure.
I think it was questioned during the week, and I read something that says what coaching badges had he, implying that he didn't have any. But to be honest, at this moment in time, I don't think you need a goalkeeping coach. You can bring anybody in to do that. The fact that he's got that role doesn't concern me. What concerns me is the fact of whether the guy's competent enough to, paper over the cracks and compete. And I think all they've done is they've just thought, who could we bring in here that costs us nothing? And I mean, potentially nothing. I'll be surprised if Barry Ferguson is doing it for money, because I know he's put his hand into his pocket before when he was at clubs. Yep. So there's every chance to take a job. And there's nothing wrong with that, because as we know, Rangers couldn't afford to bring one of the Premier League players in Scotland to the club, but they can afford to give the manager an extension, which his salary was £2.5 million a year. So you just, again, I'll go back to it right at the beginning. It's that board of directors are the cancer at the club.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they fix it, because they're in with the bricks and there isn't that many of them that are calling the shots.
The way they fix it is obviously they've got a takeover in the not too distant future, and I'm quite sure when that takeover comes in, we know there's going to be guys there, who are leaving once that takeover takes place, and then you get a change at the top. I think fair play to Patrick Stewart. He's obviously trying to organise this root and branch review. He realises there's major problems at Glasgow Rangers. Serious problems. As you said, Dennis, you used the word cancer. I think there is serious problems behind the scene. The finances just aren't there, and they're getting further and further behind Celtic. They're obviously a club who are having to operate in the short term, so you're looking at a club who's going from season to season, and Patrick Stewart is fully aware of that. So I think Stewart has to deserve, I'm going to say, a lot of credit. I'm going to use the word lightly, but I think he has to have a bit of credit for the fact that he's aware that the structure of his football club is sadly wrong. He's obviously organised a takeover there.
Previous club, Patrick Stewart.
Who was he? Was he not Manchester United for 10 years?
Manchester United. And he left them. He was one of the ones who left them in a hell of a state. Mm-hmm. He plays a part there.
Mm-hmm. Again, you can single out individuals. The whole club is riddled with it. And basically, the ones that are not being happy, or they'll get found out, if you want to call them for a better word, they've jumped ship. They've jumped ship. So although Patrick Stewart is in there, and I'm sure his salary will be tidied, does he really want to stick in the grief on the back of everybody else leaving him with it? It's not a tasty job to have, to be honest. It isn't. The best thing that could happen is a takeover. And if that happens, then there might be a breath of fresh air there. But I think, as I mentioned last week, there's maybe an element that could become unfolded as they go further down the road investigating it.
I've spoken to several Rangers supporters, and their opinion is that irrespective of anything at all about the guys who are taking over the club, that they will be accepted by the correct, the good Rangers fans, the proper Rangers fans, that they will be accepted by them, and there will be no great issues, other than the guys who are wanting to live 30 years ago for when Maurice Johnson gets signed at Ibrox, so that's a Neanderthal mentality is slowly drifting away from the club.
It's changing. But you have to good people at Ibrox. Cammy, there's great fans. Unfortunately, we always have to, because it's controversial.
We focus on Neanderthals. Yeah. At both clubs, and that's a problem. Obviously, at the moment we're talking about Rangers, which obviously means you're talking about Celtic as well. But as I say, at both clubs you have that element. But I think from talking to Rangers fans, since obviously the takeover's been announced, guys who have listened to what we said last week on air, it's pretty much they're of the opinion that the backgrounds of the owners of the San Francisco 49ers will not be questioned, and that these guys will now be accepted at Rangers, because there is a slow change in the culture of the support, which can only be good for Scottish football, can only be good for the clubs, and we have focused a lot on the negativity, so let's look at the positives.
Cammy, there's no another way out. There's definitely no another way out.
No, 100%. Rangers
there isn't enough within the board or the club or even Scotland to bring in that kind of money overnight, which is needed for next year, because they really need to hit the ground running next year, no matter who's managing it. But they need to invest the money properly, and that's hopefully where the Americans will. They are Americans, I take it. Are you saying?
Americans.
I don't know what made me think Canadians there for a second. But anyway, their money.
Right, wrong side of the country.
Yeah, but their money would be well received by the supporters.
Yeah, of course it will be.
Because you can maybe start with a bit of enthusiasm for the next season. Doesn't matter what manager's there at this moment in time. If Barry Ferguson does exceptionally well, it could be him. But when I see some of the ones that have been actually mentioned, they'll never take them to the next level. So at this moment in time, you've just got to wait and see what the Americans can bring in. But I think it would be really good if they can come in and invest in the club. John, you need something like that, Airdrie, don't you?
Hey, no. I'm actually enjoying our best run of the season, because we are, we can't climb the league until we get another few results. But we've now got we were unbeaten in 5. The problem that associated with Airdrie is that we had too many players injured throughout the beginning of this season, and now in addition to this, we had a good January window. We've got 2 players who are very good. One from England, Burton Allen, and Alec Bannon, who was with Queen's Park, and another Lewis Strapp, who's come from over Scandinavia. I think he plays there, so he was with Morton as well. But they're very experienced players, and it's what we require. I just hope it's not going to be too little, too late. But we're hanging there. I still maintain that the league we are in is the most competitive, and I think, strangely, being bottom of the league, our manager's safer than just about every other manager. He won't get sacked.
I wouldn't start that, John.
So I think he knows that he's got a longer deal to go and rebuild and things like that, because I'm hopeful. We might have it difficult tomorrow because we play here, and you were talking about managerial changes. Well, there's one guy who has 2 chances to go to the Premier Division, Scott Brown, and he turned down, allegedly, St Johnstone and also Motherwell. So, I think they're doing good things at Ayr. They're building behind the ground. They've developed it to the side there. So I think they might be close and miss out this year, but we shall see. Excuse me. We shall see. So it's a very hard game. The last time we were down there, we got 5-0. So Don't let it happen again. Keep our hopes awry. It'd be interesting. The last time I was on back in November, I said one thing for definite is Livingston's got no chance of promotion. I'm going to be eating humble pie here because, to be fair, Martindale has turned them around in that league, and he's going to take them closer. But I feel for our league because there's an act of fraud perpetrated, as far as I'm concerned. Second, third and fourth have no chance of going up, and it will always be the 9th place. Is it 11th place? 11th place side is save up. I mean, look at that Chris Doolan. He was that close to knocking out Ross County, and they just blew up because of too many games. So I think it's unfair, very unfair, the system of the playoffs. People will say playoffs are great. They are great, but not when it's designed to save a side who has a clubs.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we will be in a future episode, possibly even next week, discussing a bit of our thoughts on league reconstruction, but that's for another show, Dennis. But moving away from Rangers and moving away from the Championship just now, we kind of look down south because we have neglected really talking about proper football the last couple of weeks and looked at so much behind the scenes or off the field. Looking down south, as I said, I think results the other night, Dennis. Liverpool, another victory. They obviously beat Manchester City at the weekend, but another victory for Liverpool pretty much shows them up. They're 11 points clear. The only side probably in British football with a bigger lead than that is Celtic, up here. But Liverpool, 11 points clear, pretty much sewn up the English Premier League because I don't see Liverpool imploding to the extent that either Arsenal, Manchester City, Nottingham Forest or Chelsea will be in a position to catch them, Dennis.
Well, I think they're a treat to watch when they're in full flow.
Yeah.
And against Man City, they were outstanding, and it was a really, really good game to watch. Arsenal, different kettle of fish altogether. I've said it before. I mean, the boy's injured now, but you've got Havertz, you've got Sterling, and you've Trossard, and you're looking at the three of them to be your goal scorers.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. You ain't winning no league with they guys because they are not good enough. They're not consistent enough at that level. And that is, I'm not saying that's the reason why Arsenal are struggling, but it contributes to it. And I've never felt for a minute this season that Arsenal were capable of winning the league. I actually think they're punching above their weight. If you're an Arsenal supporter, you'd probably say no. And they've done exceptionally well. But as you say, the gap is now opening up that you can't see Liverpool losing the amount of games that Arsenal are not going to lose any. And that's the problem we've got. Nottingham Forest really done exceptionally well, but at the last half dozen games, they've lost 3 and drawn 1. So you say to yourself, falling away. Man City's picked up, so they're too far a gap. You've got 20 points there between Liverpool and Man City. Chelsea, again, hot and cold, 3 victories, 3 defeats in the last half dozen. Newcastle, they've been a bit disappointing. I thought they were maybe going to go and maybe challenge Notts Forest and Arsenal maybe to be up there for second place. Disintegrated. I don't know what's happened to them. You look at that top section though, and Aston Villa, for some unknown reason as well, have plummeted to 10th place.
Yeah,
they were up there. So there's a lot of teams that have actually dropped from where they were before the turn of the year. And you say there's a lot of games there that 3 points are so valuable. And then you take in the bottom of the league. And then last night I did watch West Ham picking up another 3 points after having beaten Arsenal at the weekend. So that's 6 points, really steady for them. Although they're a mile away from being the finished article. But when you look at Leicester last night and Van Nistelrooy, wow. I've never seen a manager on the sidelines that had nothing to offer. Nothing to offer. A guy actually kicks the ball out the park. It's a bad pass. And it was poor, right? No reaction. Nothing.
Yeah.
My blood would be boiling. Absolutely rattled to the point they're 2-0 down at this time. And I'm thinking, are you no caring? Why in this job? There's other people who'll be dying to get this job. And they're
So
sitting
can
at
I ask you a question then?
in 19th place. And they'll go down. You could put your money on it now. There's no fighting them. The boy up front, Jamie Vardy. I mean, he's seen better. He can't lead that line of cell anymore. He's too old. But I'll tell you what, he's up there on his own and he's fighting a losing battle. And they just kept playing the same way, nothing changed. And I'm actually pulling my hair out saying, by the way, West Ham is not magnificent by any manner of means, but you're making it easy for them. And they'll definitely get down. And we're talking, somebody was talking about it yesterday. The three that come up are the three that are going to go back down again. Wolves might contribute to maybe one of them escaping it, but you've got
they've been putting up some results as well, but Wolves have been putting up 2 or 3 results as well, so they're another one that's kind of hot and cold and they're suffering for a bad start. But no, I think Ipswich have been a disappointment. I thought Ipswich under were going to do a bit more, under Kieran McKenna.
I said that as well at the start of the season. I thought
Leicester have obviously changed their manager this season. It hasn't worked under Van Nistelrooy. I think you get the immediate bump and get a decent first game off them, but other than that, they've been dreadful. And Southampton are just horrendous. Southampton are dreadful to watch. The one thing about Southampton is they're consistent because they're consistently garbage week in, week out. And that's the thing. They've obviously changed their manager as well. They haven't had any kind of response at all from them. So no, I'm in total agreement with you, Dennis. I think Southampton and Leicester are absolute certainties. Kieran McKenna, I think, has got a wee bit about him. Good young manager, and I think even if he goes down, he'll be kept in the job and given another chance to either get Ipswich up or could actually find himself at another Premier League club. But no, I definitely think 2 out of the 3, and the only other saving grace could possibly be a wee bit of drop off in form if Wolves don't continue their kind of upturn in form recently.
Yeah, but I don't think Van Nistelrooy will see the season out, because looking at it, if I was in that board, I would be going, nah, you need to show us a wee bit more. We can't pay you money here to stand in that edge of that pitch, and there's no motivation coming from you.
There was nothing.
There was no lift, there was nothing, and it actually was so flat. I was a bit embarrassed. And he's standing there looking at the game, and I'm thinking, can you not bring something to this? You were a world-class footballer. And why you want to do it after the quality of a player that he was? I mean, he was outstanding. Why do these guys want to come back into the game? You could say the same with Barry Ferguson. You're no short of a pound or two. Why don't you just go and enjoy your life? Instead of that, they go in the firing line and they think they're going to be heroes again. Sorry, their days are gone.
Yeah.
So
indeed,
I'm not saying Barry Ferguson days are gone. I was just putting him in the mix with that there. But again, just finishing off in the Premier League, Manchester United. Do you see any signs, John, yourself or Cammy, that they're go anywhere?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was going to put forward, forget Manchester United for a minute, but in my opinion, I think that what Jurgen Klopp did for Liverpool has been the greatest act of any departing great manager ever. You look at what the legacy Sir Alec left behind, nothing. You look at what Arsene Wenger left behind, nothing. And you can go down all the way. You look at a great manager, Brendan Rodgers, Leicester, nothing. He left a wonderful handover for that manager. I mean, he's not had to change so much, but he's a great manager in his own right. And all of a sudden, Liverpool just, he could have been greedy and selfish and said, I'm going to hang on here. I've created a very good team, etc. But he was obviously drained, Klopp. So he decided to do that handover. And I think I can't recall another manager leaving a legacy of such a great team behind at any point. Liverpool, I correct myself again, because sometimes you guys are old enough to remember the Liverpool boot room, as it was called. And they had there was a whole succession, and it was very good forward planning there. But I've never seen anything like it. It's back to Liverpool again. No club, I don't think, has had that kind of manager handover ever. Manchester United are absolutely shocking just now. They're bleeding money, and you're saying about what can they do to fix it? I don't know. I just they need to do something to get rid of the baggage, which are the Americans, because they. I mean, I know the guy who binned a lot of Scottish employees up at what do you call it? Not Bannockburn, Mr. Ineos. You know, he left all friends of mine who were employed there high and dry, but he's doing nothing. They're telling people you can't have a bowl of soup or a sandwich or something like that. It's ridiculous for a club of their stature. You know, and I just think that they have got more steps to go. I mean, in England, I see that they've made enough points, so they have to get 5 Champions League places this season or next season. You know, I think that's unfair for the start because they're not champions. But you know, the thing is, Manchester United will struggle to even make Europe.
Manchester United won't make Europe.
But you know, John, you've just touched on a valid point there, and I'll just diversify slightly because we will touch on the fixtures for it. The Champions League this year and the Europa League, the fixture structure and the games that have thrown up have been outstanding. Now, why don't we just take it right across the board that one team, the Champions League is one team from each league, and the Europa League is second. End of story. Nothing. Forget your cups. Forget about everything else. That's all you have. The Europa League is for the runner-up on that particular league. I think we would have a really, really magnificent Champions League and Europa League, and you would also find a lot of people who are maybe just a wee bit more lacklustre, accepting third and fourth because they know they're still in the Champions League and they'll get the returns for it.
Yeah.
So I would definitely.
I agree. And what I disagree with is that, you know, you've got the stage now where they drop out of one trophy into another trophy, you know, having performed poorly.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You know,
no, I think there's too many entries for teams that have not reached the heights that should be rewarded for the Champions League and Europa League. And I think the Europa League would be a lot stronger as well.
UEFA are worried about the big clubs though disappearing over the horizon.
That's not going to happen. It's just a thought, though. I know you're not going to get backwards. What I would say is, rather than doing that, because I think it's definitely not going to happen, some kind of handicap, whether we have a top league of champions only and a second division Champions League, however you want to term it, of teams who have finished not the champions, you know, and do something like that. So almost start the season with playoffs to allow them to get to the proper Champions League, you know, between clubs that have maybe finished second, third and fourth. I know we have a kind of playoff system for some of our clubs already to try to get into to the Europa League or the UEFA Conference League, whatever the hell the leagues are called now, you know. But
they diversified this season. I feel they changed the tack this season, and it was so much more enjoyable where you've actually got a playoff match like Man City versus Real Madrid at an earlier stage. You know, that's so much better. But that annoys me. We do it in Scotland, you know, which is pathetic. The Celtic, Rangers and 2 or 3 other clubs didn't have a League Cup tie to play until they were playing the quarter-final or something like that. You know, that's just ludicrous. That you know, you should have to play the requisite. If you can't field a team, field the second team, field your B team.
Yeah. Well, we got
which they do anyway.
Scottish Cup.
You do in some
Scottish Cup, the big boys are not into later on, which is a bit of a shame because some of the lower level teams do deserve their day. I mean, Fraserburgh got it, but they had to battle through to get to that next round. Whereas some of the teams, if they have got through the preliminaries or the Pacific leagues, then I think they should be in the hat. Anyway, back to Premier League. I think that's about that in relation to the FA Cup ties, if you want to see if there's anything there.
Run through the FA Cup ties,
Yeah.
then we'll finish off with the fixtures up here, Dennis.
Yeah. There is one tonight, Aston Villa against Cardiff, and these are the 5th round. Crystal Palace of Millwall tomorrow at 12:15, along with a 12:15 kickoff for Preston North End and Burnley. Bournemouth have got Wolves at 3 o'clock, and Man City are playing Plymouth Argyle at 5:45 in the evening. And that'll be a nice bit of revenue for Plymouth Argyle with the 2 ties that they've had. So, well worthwhile.
I have an interest.
I'll tell you what, strange if they to put Man City out. I mean, they certainly turn Liverpool over.
Yeah.
It's their last trophy. There's nothing else to play for.
Yeah, so worth watching. And then on Sunday.
And Crystal Palace, because Airdrie sold a young player down there and he scored in the Premier Division, actually, Justin Devaney. He's a very good player. He's playing with Northern Ireland as well. He came from Paisley. But watch this space.
Yeah. Did they get money for him, John?
They did indeed, yes. I believe it's as much as about 100k.
All right, very good. Yeah.
I said you were able to need 2 players.
Does more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sunday gives us Newcastle against Brighton, and that's 1:45 kickoff. Man United play at 4:30 against Fulham, and then on Monday you have Notts Forest against Ipswich. So some decent ties.
I was going to say not a great deal there to get excited about. Probably the Man United Fulham game.
Was it not an FA Cup tie? Do you remember that Fulham were at Manchester United and the manager gets sent off? And there was an incident a season or 2 ago, and he just lost the plot, and a player gets sent off for touching the referee or whatever.
Yeah,
it all went haywire in the last 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was, and it was a Fulham manager at the time who's still obviously in charge, whose name escapes me at the moment. You know what I mean? The guy was at Everton and things like that. So it's. I think I vaguely remember the occasion you're talking about. Yeah. But I think that's probably the most exciting thing that looks like happening in the FA Cup this weekend, because there's not much to inspire you in these ties at all. Even the Monday night game, Forest against Ipswich, not something that you're going to necessarily sit up late to watch that game, So
I wouldn't sit up early to watch it, never mind late.
No, that's it exactly, So no, there's not a great deal there to get excited about in the FA Cup, Dennis. I don't think so. Let's have a wee look.
The highlights will do for me, I think, with the bulk of them.
That's it. Watch football anyway.
There is good ties in among it, and it'll throw up some decent goals, I'm sure. But there's none of them, as you say, are really fixating us to watch them. But anyway,
moving on to Scotland, let's run through the Scottish fixtures.
Yeah.
Have a nice short show this week.
I think what you need to look at is last week's results, because they were relevant. Hibs beating Celtic 2-1, and obviously Rangers going down 2-0 to St Mirren. I said last week when we were going through the fixtures, I went, well, I think Rangers will win that quite comfortably. And you went, I wouldn't know about that, but it was half tongue in cheek.
Yeah. but to be honest, what I did predict last week was Hibs beating Celtic.
Right. Yeah.
If you recall, I did predict that one. So I don't get much right, but that was one I got right last week.
Yeah. But why do you get sacked for losing a game against St Mirren at home and not get sacked for losing a game against Queen's Park at home in the Cup?
I think it's the back of the last 3 performances, as we mentioned earlier on, John. That's the thing. The performance against Queen's Park, whilst it wasn't completely and utterly turgid. I think Rangers had enough chances to win 3 or 4 games against Queen's Park. They just couldn't score. And then obviously they couldn't convert the penalty. That's not the manager's fault, certainly, but the way he set up the team against Hearts, they were extremely fortunate to get a 3-1 victory in that one, And indeed, John, a bit of I know how much you like your trivia questions. One of the trivia questions that came out of that after the Hearts game was Rangers' second top scorer away from home after the Hearts game. Have you any idea who it was?
Second top.
Second top scorer away from home.
Own goals.
Yeah, that was what it was. It was a guy who scored the 2 own goals for Hearts. Basically, instantly made him Rangers' second top scorer. So I think when you're looking at that, that there's a reason why Philip Clement has been sacked. Just the timing just struck me as really, really strange, as I say, with a European tie coming up, So there we are. But no, Dennis, you're right. As I say, none of us really did predict the Rangers' result. To lose 2-0 at home to St Mirren was a massive shock for them, and a terrible, terrible result. And obviously, Clement paid the ultimate price for a terrible performance.
Yeah. Anyway, there was midweek fixtures as well, and Celtic bounced back by beating Aberdeen 5-1. Rangers run out comfortable winners against Kilmarnock, who, I look at Kilmarnock and I've thought all season they could be relegation candidates, but the 2 big games back to back, well, it's taking them up into third bottom. But something, I still think they're candidates for potentially having a playoff. The Kilmarnock just doesn't do it for me, and I don't know if it's, again, I keep rattling my gums about this, that artificial surface. I just can't get away from that.
That looked awful.
I know. So, I mean, Rangers done well, although, as we say, we had a long talk about it at the beginning. They took a young lad off at centre half, and it made a massive difference. And Dessler got a couple of goals, and he got man of the match, and I'll no rattle my gums about the ones he missed.
Yeah.
But
the one thing I will say about that game, Dennis, and as again, talking to a number of Rangers supporters, because you know how I watch football just now, it's a 5-minute bit in and out, and the highlights in the morning. The one thing even I noticed within these highlights was there seemed to be a structure and a balance of play about Rangers that they had been lacking under Clement, So whilst I've been highly critical of what Barry Ferguson has done, particularly obviously at Clyde, but more recently at Kelty Hearts, and then obviously Alloa, has been massively critical. He did manage to get a structure about Rangers, for that one game. Let's see if it continues. But as I say, fair play to him for that one. There definitely was a structure to Rangers play.
After 16 minutes, he must have been saying to himself, what have I let myself in for here? And then, he comes away with a 4-2 victory. What a start that is from. Absolutely magnificent. And if he continues like that throughout the league, then he'll have done an absolutely brilliant job.
First time in 15 years that Rangers have been trailing 2-0 away from home and won the game.
Yeah.
That's
Motherwell's new manager, just moving on. Motherwell's new manager, beaten in the first game and a good result against Dundee, who I don't know what's happened to Dundee. They're on free fall. They have, looking at the last half dozen games, they've lost the last 5 in a draw, the 6th one. And you say to yourself, what's happened to them? I just don't know, because I thought they were doing exceptionally well way back when the 2 Dundee teams were battling it out before Christmas. They just seem to have fallen apart.
I think they lost the playmaker for a start, and now they're losing the other one to Rangers.
Yeah,
and I'm not doubting the young guy will, try his heart out to avoid that, but it still mucks up your early season plans, because I've seen Dundee twice this season at close hand, because we had them in the League Cup and also in the Scottish Cup, and they turned us over something easy, but they rely very much on Simon Murray, and if he's not scoring, there's a problem. But I just think that they are, it's hard. It must be hard. I know what it's been like for us. Once you're on a poor run, to get out of that poor run, and they had a dodgy penalty, a doubtful penalty denied last. This is Friday, so it was Tuesday or Wednesday, was it, Dennis?
Yeah.
I thought they had a penalty shout. They're not getting a break, and sometimes that can go against you. But the 6-0 from Hearts, I mean, Hearts never looked like doing that to anybody this season at all. And then all of a sudden they score 6.
Yeah, incredible. 2 Edinburgh teams are doing exceptionally well now. Hibs, unbelievable. They've gone the opposite way Aberdeen's gone. They'll come down. Hibs have went up. They're sitting in fourth spot now, Hibs. And we did say this a way back after 3 games. Hibs and Hearts wouldn't end up in the relegation zone. And I don't know if that was just stating the obvious, but the others sitting, Hearts in 6th and Hibs in 4th. And I think they'll still strive. And I think we could end up with Hibs and Hearts as being 3rd spot and 4th spot, because Dundee United have dropped a bit, and Aberdeen, although they've picked up a little bit, are still not going to be confident enough to contain that 3rd spot. So my thoughts right now are Hibs and Hearts could be 3rd and 4th, and that would be some achievement from where they started.
Very much so. I mean, I love the young boy that plays with Hearts, James Wilson. I think he's fantastic to watch. Yeah. And he looks a great prospect for the future, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, he has been, turned it around for them, Yeah. I do feel, though, that, and I worry from a Scotland point of view, I do feel that Craig Gordon's timing's going a wee bit.
You're right. I'd agree with that, John. Yes, there's a couple of times he's looked a bit dodgy. But for me, the boy that stands out is Penrice. I rattled my gummits about him about 3 weeks ago. I think he's outstanding. He adds an awful lot. His deliveries into the box are superb. Corners as well, brilliant. And it's noticeable that Hearts have got people that you can pick out. There's a few of the teams that they're just players that you think, well, they're in the Premier League, but they're no standing out and looking as if you'd pay money to go and watch them. So the Premier League shape, nothing surprising really. The bottom's certainly tight. It's a tight league. Into the Championship, there's a game started just now, Partick Thistle and Livingston, and the score is 0 each after 9 minutes. The results last week.
Livingston, having played Partick last week, I'm taking Livingston.
Yeah, well, Livingston obviously got a good result against Morton on Tuesday, beating Morton 3-2. And that again with extra midweek games, it's amazing. 6 points in the space of your week. It certainly helps an awful lot when you're looking at your league table from 1 week to the next. Other games that are going ahead rather than looking back last week is Saturday's fixtures is Ayr United against your own team, John. Ayr Unions, 3 o'clock kickoff. And you touched on it earlier on. Airdrie are not in that zone that we predicted were definitely going down now. I know they've got a lot to do. There's a 7-point gap between Dunfermline and Airdrie. And to be honest,
with a game in hand, I think
you could catch them. You really could catch them.
We could do, yeah. We could do, but I mean, part of that is down to the fact that Wraith Rovers having 3 managers, Dunfermline 2. I mean, I just think Partick Thistle are on to their second managers just now, and it's a fool's errand if they think that a new manager's just going to put it right in there. They've taken Partick Thistle have done a Rangers and gone to pundit land and taken a couple of pundits for managers. Although one of them is a player, Brian Graham, but this is crazy. I just don't know what.
Well, I don't think Mark Wilson has any intention of taking the job. I know him, and I think he's filling in there. The bottom line is that's. Would you like to do it till we get somebody? That's the scenario with that. So there is a gap, but what I always find is, John, that when you're going to be getting rid of the manager, did they do it at 4:30 that particular day? Or did they actually think about it? Well, if they're thinking about it, surely they should get somebody in the wings that was ready to come in and hit the ground running. And you maybe have a conversation with them and say, look, come and have a look at the games or watch our videos, because potentially there might be a role here for you. Instead of that, as you say, they've brought people in there, which is a stopgap, but I don't think it works when you're doing that.
Yeah. Succession planning is every club should be. I mean, that's the director's remit all the time, or the CEO or whoever it may be.
But you just there's too many of them having the knee-jerk reaction and just say, right, we'll bin him. Well, you were going to bin him a month ago. Why have you not got somebody ready just to fill the jersey?
Yeah, bring it just to come in.
I've never worked that out. Never, ever have I worked that out. They know the guy's going. Surely they've got people round about that should be going and checking out who's available and who would fit the bill, so that you're only missing the maximum one game, if even that, with a temporary manager in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the rest of the games for tomorrow is Dunfermline have Morton, Hamilton Falkirk. That'll be a good game as well. And Wraith against Queens. There is games on Tuesday, which is a toughie again for yourself, John. You've got Airdrie at home. Airdrie's at home to Falkirk. And Queen's Park have Ayr United. And then Livingston have got a game against Wraith Rovers on Wednesday. Certainly a glut of these games coming. Just fortunate. It's good that our weather's not too bad at this moment in time. Normally we get really bad weather, and these games would have been a disaster. But no, there's a lot of good games there.
Yeah, a shout out for the oldies, because Dick Campbell's starting to home in on another championship promotion title, etc. with East Fife. Getting close up.
Yeah. Well,
you've got
to look at the old war horses. Anyway, let's take ourselves into
these dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's it. Dinosaurs is a word on this programme. Right. Well, from one dinosaur talking to another. Saturday's League One fixtures is Alloa have Cove Rangers, Arbroath Annan, Barton Stenhousemuir, Inverness Cali are playing Montrose, and Queen of the South have Kelty. There's a game on Tuesday. Dumbarton are playing Arbroath. Arbroath doing really well. They're sitting at the top of the league, 43 points. They've just edged Cove, who were sitting there last week, who have 41, and they've done really brilliant. Stenhousemuir sitting in 41 as well, and Alloa in 37 points. So that's tight there, but you could go right down that division, because there's nothing then. Right down to, obviously, Dumbarton, who are well adrift. But your Bolton, Inverness, Cali, I think they're probably for getting into maybe fourth spot. They're sitting in 25 points when we say Alloa's sitting in 37 in fourth position. So, there's a 4 games. That's a lot to ask at this time.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Into League Two, and the games that we have for tomorrow are Edinburgh City, Stranraer, Forfar Clyde, Peterhead Elgin, Spartans Bonnyrigg Rose, and Stirling Albion East Fife. There's a game on Tuesday, which is a nice journey again. They always seem to work these ones out. Stranraer are all the way up to Forfar. What in the God's name are they doing? Seriously.
Well, who knows? Don't tell me. Forfar and Brechin are two of my most enjoyable away days. And I think Forfar are going to drop out. You'll know.
I don't think so.
I
don't think so. Forfar, I think they'll stay up. Yeah.
I know who you're going to say, Cammy. No. I know exactly who you're going to say.
Okay, I'll stand by it.
Bonnyrigg Rose.
No.
Is someone going to get a 15-point deduction?
No, I've just got a funny feeling Clyde will get drawn in.
You think so?
I think so. Looking at how they were last week, to lose a game that Dennis, we sat here last week and says, no, Clyde are going to win that at home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know, if they're starting to lose games at home, they can't buy a point away from home. Forfar are on a decent run. Tomorrow's a massive 6-pointer, obviously up at Station Park. So, that's a massive, massive game tomorrow. So massive, in fact, that I'm driving up to it tomorrow. So, I know, yeah.
I hope you're not going to be are you going to be giving the manager abuse if he gets beaten?
Me? No, I'm too far away for that kind of stuff. I don't shout abuse, Dennis. I sit there quiet.
Who's Clyde? Oh, it's one of the brothers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Darren Young.
Darren Young, yeah. Albion Rovers manager,
Yeah, ex-Albion Rovers, ex-East Fife. You know, so, no, as I say, I've got an awfully sneaking feeling that Clyde are going to get drawn into it.
Yeah. Well, looking at your league, Cammy, because I know you're watching your time, you're going out somewhere, you told me. So East Fife are in first spot with 50 points. Peterhead behind my tip and 46. A wee gap opening up there now. Edinburgh City 43, that's a surprise. And Elgin, who have done exceptionally well, in 40 points. Then you've got Spartans, Stirling Albion, Stranraer, Clyde, Bonnyrigg Rose, and Forfar. And with the exception of maybe Bonnyrigg Rose and Forfar, I think the others could battle out. There's 2 games swing between Clyde and Spartans to be in 5th spot.
Yeah, Clyde are too far away. Too far away for anything.
Yeah. Anyway, let's look at the Champions League, because there is some ties starting this week for the last 16. And we've got Bruges, Aston Villa, Borussia Dortmund, Lille, PSV, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. That's the Tuesday night fixtures. Feyenoord, Inter on the Wednesday, along with Bayern Munich, Bayer Leverkusen, Benfica, Barcelona, and PSG. I've got Liverpool. What do you say about them? Brilliant.
That is 8 potentially cracking ties. Certainly 7. Yeah. You know, and by the way, fair play to Bruges for getting through. You know, so that is 8 potentially cracking ties. And what I also like in the Champions League this season is I've done that nonsense away of staggering them over a couple of weeks. You know, I mean, you used to get games on a Tuesday and then the following week you'd have other, you know, so you're getting all 8 ties of the last 16 in the same week. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's absolutely fantastic, you know. So
you're probably looking
at that over and down. Oh, definitely, John. You know, it's you're getting up in the morning and actually enjoying watching the highlights of the games, you know. Well, I am anyway, you know. So,
well, another team that's got to be looked on and thinking they've done absolutely brilliant is Aston Villa. I mean,
absolutely
brilliant. Just been the last 16 of the Champions League.
Am I right in saying he got the sack from Arsenal?
Yes,
Aston Villa manager.
Yeah.
After he's won the UEFA Cup,
he did struggle there. There was no doubt about it. He had a hard time at Arsenal, and I thought, they needed to change it. But it just shows you he's got his feet under the table at Aston Villa, and he's done brilliant. Really.
He's been allowed to build a side there, you know. So. No, fair play to what he's doing. That's it. Again, they've struggled, I think, between not having a big enough squad for the Premier League and Europe, you know. But they were never going to win the Premier League anyway. So no, hopefully they'll go a wee bit further in the Champions League as well, you know. Because I think they're a really decent club.
Yeah. They lost a smashing player to Saudi Arabia. Incidentally, when you mentioned a player there, Leicester, I think Jamie Vardy probably head for Saudi Arabia or America.
I think he's 38 now, though, is he not?
Oh, he's still a big payday, etc. And he's got his wife's habit to feed. You know, she likes new wardrobes every.
And a fight. Well,
an argument,
yeah. Moving on to Europa League. Tottenham have got AZ away. I'm just looking. Fenerbahce have got Rangers, and Real Sociedad have Man United. Just looking at the 3 ties, I think that's great that Rangers are still in it in March. Man United are lucky to still be in anything. And Tottenham, I bet they're similar. And I think Rangers, out of the 3 British teams, have shown the most, what would you say, the most about them, if you might say that. Although we've given them a bit of stick earlier. We're talking a totally different game here. This is Europe. And I think Rangers, if I was to look at the 3 teams, I would say they're the ones that can hold their head high and say they've done really well.
But just like you've seen a good performance from a new manager on Scottish football, where Clement, failed to develop it, his forte was European football. So might the reverse happen in Europe? I don't know.
Well, maybe you'll find that Barry Ferguson will use the same tactics at Kelty or Clyde, and that'll confuse the opposition totally.
Yeah.
Has he got a UEFA badge? Has he got a UEFA badge? Do you not need someone who's...
Yeah, he'll have it. Yeah.
There'll be a way around that anyway.
No, there is never a way around it. The thing is, if you've not got it, it would need to be McCann or somebody else.
That's what I mean. There'll be a way around it.
See, because Rhys McCabe's not got all his badges. That's why he's got a guy in his sidekick.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You can do that. You can do that.
I don't know.
Yeah, the manager doesn't have to have it if you say your assistant has got his pro license or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So you can get away with it.
Right.
Indeed. But no, I mean, that's 3 decent ties for British clubs, you know, and I do think, however, that Rangers' European adventure will come to an end, and it's purely and simply down to the manager. You know, I think Clement had his tactics worked out for how Rangers played in Europe, and Rangers had that structure and balance of play that they don't have in Scottish football. They definitely had it for the European ties. What I will say, Barry Ferguson's best performance I thought I ever saw for Rangers was actually in a European tie at Ibrox, where I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Can't remember who it was against, but it's a game actually I was at, believe it or not. And I thought Barry Ferguson that night just showed me what a quality midfield player he was. So if he can replicate that as a manager, then perhaps Rangers could sneak something against Fenerbahce. But Jose Mourinho doesn't have his troubles to seek, as you were saying earlier, John. You know what I mean? He's courted enough controversy this week, the last 10 days in Turkey. You know what I mean? So it remains to be seen how much longer he'll be in a job.
So, isn't it? So what's a good result?
What's a good result for Rangers? A draw. A draw.
A draw.
Rangers got a draw there, and they've got Barry Ferguson back at Ibrox. So I can see them actually winning it if they get a draw there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what they'd need. I think they would need a draw, you know.
Don't write them off.
Another defeat will be enough.
I would not write them off in this because they don't have great players, but if they can go and work their socks off Rangers and Dessers can maybe hit the target a wee bit more often, then I think they've got a good shout. And then that was more or less my words for last Saturday, and St Mirren turned them over. So you don't know what team's going to turn up.
Aye, that's the problem. You know, that is the issue there. You know, for definite, that's definitely a problem. You have no idea as to what Rangers going to turn up.
No.
But anyway,
hopefully, Barry Ferguson will make a right good job of it, because the Premier League needs Rangers, as I keep saying, as a strong team, and so the Celtic, because you can't miss out on it. It's good football if we can get the two of them working well.
And a decent Hibs and Hearts as well. And on that subject, hopefully next week we should be joined by Graham Duffy. Obviously, we had him on 3 weeks ago, Dennis, and he was insistent that Hibs were going to Hibs it at some point in time. But we'll get the Edinburgh Derby tomorrow, so we that one. But I think someone went wrong with my connection there. But I think that's us for tonight, guys. Thanks very much to Dennis Newell. Thanks very much to John O'Brien.
Thank you very much.
You have been listening.
Good to see you.
Enjoy.
You have been listening to the Friday Night Football Pitch. Remember, as we always say, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, tell your pals, because as always, it is always happening on the pitch. Good night.